All right, Kenneth Farrell,
Present.
Lawrence Stevens,
Here.
Larry Burns,
Here.
John Cresser,
Here.
Michelle Cresser. Here.
Do I have a motion to approve the September 23rd agenda?
Motion.
I have a motion. I have a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Do I have a motion to approve the meeting minutes from March 25th, 2024?
I have a couple of corrections to the minutes.
Okay,
At the beginning, it says that Larry Stevens nominated Ken Farrell and Larry Stevens seconded the motion. I think that's probably a mistake, right?
Probably.
Yeah. Do you
I think I
recall?
made the
who-
motion. I'm not sure who seconded it.
Yeah, do you know who,
But
do we know who
that's anybody.
seconded that?
I can look in my packet that I write down,
Okay,
but I can make sure that Katie,
we just get that corrected.
yes, she can change it.
And then the other one is down near the bottom, the record shows 5 members of the planning commission, but the president, I wasn't there that night, so it's only 4 members. Other than that,
Good
that's,
job. man.
yeah,
Kind of new to find this.
I know. And-
all right. So we have an amended motion as revised. Do I have a motion?
Yes, motion.
I have a second.
So,
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. All right, number 3 is Hatfield Walk.
Hello, good evening, everyone. My name is Ben Goldthorpe with Pennington Property Group.
Can you hit the button?
Sure.
Yeah, yeah.
Thank you.
Just, it's only really for the recording.
Sure.
Yes, yeah, thank you.
Again, Ben Goldthorpe with Pennington Property Group. Thank you for having me this evening. We're here this evening for 23 North Main Street, which we call Hatfield Walk. If you'll recall, this project had previously received a favorable zoning hearing board decision to allow the project to move forward as townhouses. The plan as was presented to the zoning hearing board at the time was 9 townhouses. But through that decision, there was a requirement for the project to conform to the R4 standards of your zoning ordinance. And so that is what we show here today, which is a total of 8 townhome units. The project's roughly about an acre of disturbance. We have this kind of point. We have our access along North Main Street. We come into the project to a parking area to the north. And we have our drive aisle to our 8 units. And then at the end of it, we have a stormwater management facility. That's an underground storage facility that was a requirement of the zoning decision as well. So it's complied with that. As far as just generally, we have a homeowners association to own and maintain the driveway and the area around the homes itself. Then we have the other utilities, the water, sanitary sewer, that's all coming off North Main Street. So that's just a general overview. We did receive comments from the borough engineer. It was a very thorough letter. We had a chance to digest it. Most of the comments are well complied. We did have a chance to talk with your engineer earlier today to clarify a few questions. And so at this point, we're planning on complying, revising our plans, and resubmitting to the borough. We also received a letter from your traffic consultant. In that letter, Anton had requested a gap study, and so we're going to comply with that and perform that study as well. So as far as just general overview, again, we're looking to comply with all the comments that were written professional consultants reviews. And happy to answer any questions the planning commission has this evening.
All right, I'll go first. I guess the first question is how do you fit into this whole puzzle? How do you have standing to be here tonight?
Yes, I have an agreement to purchase the property. Yes.
So you're going to purchase it from the developer who's purchasing it from the Moyers.
That's correct. So I'll be the end builder.
So the other developers will be totally out of it 100%.
That's correct. At this point, he essentially is.
Okay. there's no lot lines shown on the plan. Are these being lotted out or how are they being sold?
So under the Planned Community Act, you can have footprint ownership, which is what this will be. So this will be part of a planned community and there'll be a homeowners association. And in that declaration, it would define the meets and bounds of the unit owners, which would be the footprint of their house.
Okay. At the zoning hearing board, it was asked about the space, which would be to the left there, would be dedicated to the borough or the open space or whatever. I mean, obviously, there's no meets and bounds. We would obviously have to firm that up. As well as I know you have the stormwater facility in there. The homeowners association would also be responsible for the stormwater facility. Yes?
That is correct. And I did read that condition. I think the simplest way to handle it would be in the owners association documents. When we get to the point of drafting a declaration of covenant restrictions, we can put language in there that would allow the public access. And so perhaps even though the borough is maybe not owning physically the ground, they have the right and ability to enter the property as they see fit.
I don't think that that's what this borough would want. I think this borough would want it in fee simple and we would take ownership of it because it's adjacent to one of our parks. And the spirit intent at the zoning hearing board was to have access to the park as well as some kind of access to get out to Main Street, possibly through the development or something similar to that so that we have an access into the park. Having you or the homeowners association retain ownership is not what we talked about at the zoning hearing.
Sure, I'm happy to carve off a lot and I guess if that lot were to include the stormwater facilities, I would say the opposite would happen, right? If the borough owns the ground with the stormwater facility owned or is sitting on, then we have the ability to maintain that on borough property. So again, to me, that's a technical item that I think that between my council and the borough's council, we can work out those specific details.
With respect to that, there are density requirements. So if a separate lot is going to be carved out and these 8 units were on a smaller lot, they may not meet the density requirements then. I don't know what those numbers are on the top of my head.
Well, understood, and I can respect that, but I can tell you at the zoning hearing board meeting, the intent was to have a lot that the borough is in control of, that attaches to our park, that we can somehow have access from the park to Main Street, to pedestrian access, whether that is through the development or somehow separate or whatever the case may be. And that remains to be seen. So I would think that even if the density is not met, the requirement of the lot would govern over that because they would meet the density without the lot being dedicated to the borough, and now they're going to dedicate. I mean,
So that relief would be applied in the zoning decision.
that would be my interpretation of it, but I'm not the zoning officer. And that would be something that we would have to certainly work that out, but again, I think the spirit and intent of the approval was that the standalone lot we are in control of, that we have it so we can attach it to the open space that we already have and somehow be able to, provide access so we can be walkable and whatever you want to call it to get back to the park. Chad, is there a floodplain associated with this?
They're showing riparian corridor. One of the comments in my letter was to identify the source or the type of classification of the creek, stream, whatever you want to call it. Because that determines the requirements of the riparian corridor. It's not a defined floodplain on the FEMA map.
Right.
The soils that are associated are
Or
not
alluvial.
floodplain
Oh, they're
soils.
not alluvial.
So based on FEMA and the borough's ordinance, it's not considered a flood. But it does have a riparian corridor associated.
in the zoning comments, are there any deal breakers?
I don't think so, no, it's. And you'll see one of my comments in their letter F on page 3 at the top, that does discuss the condition about open space. One of the, discussions I had with Ben today were, did zoning hearing board consider the community area as open space? Sometimes they're interchangeably, defined or discussed. Did the zoning hearing board think the term, community area meant open space, or was there a separate area that the zoning hearing board wanted dedicated as open space? And I don't have an answer to that. It's just a question I had. I don't believe there's anything in the zoning ordinance that they cannot comply with, irregardless of the density.
Right,
I mean,
right.
Even the Bavarian corridor comment I have in there, I think it would probably only change it by maybe a couple of feet based on, the slopes or what have you out there. So I don't think that'll be impactful for the development.
There's a comment in here about lights, about street lights. I'm assuming you're providing street lights some form or fashion,
Yeah.
obviously to the satisfaction, and I'm assuming that they'll somewhat match what the borough has. Not, I don't want a light bulb on a telephone pole. Want something that looks nice.
Sure, that was actually one of the questions I had on my list for the planning commission in terms of how much light you'd like to see. Certainly we'll have coach lights, on either side of the garage doors. And so one of the questions I had was, would you like a light at our entrance along Main Street? And then, would you like a light perhaps, somewhere maybe in this location? Code wasn't 100% specific in terms of how much light or how much not light, and every place I work is different.
Sure. I mean, obviously, I think Chad can work with you on that, but I would think you would want one at the intersection, maybe one intermediate, one at the intersection where the townhouses are, something along those lines. But I just want to make sure it's something decorative, ornate, something similar to what the borough has, not, and believe me, I've seen developers try to put a 4x4 post with a light bulb on it, and that's not what we want.
I did drive through the project that Lamar, Jimmy D'Angelo worked through. What did you think of the street light that was in that community?
I don't know if I saw that. I know I've driven through there, but I don't know if the streetlights were installed yet when I was there.
I was just there not long ago, and I wasn't focusing on the street lights, so I couldn't tell you. It's something I'll see it posted up.
Yeah.
I'll take a look at. As far as the lighting goes, again, we had that discussion earlier today. You're certainly gonna need security lighting, safety lighting, so all the parking spaces will need to be lit enough so that, people can get out of their vehicles and feel safe and not trip on anything. But at the same time, and this being a dense, development here with houses right along the property line, glare is a concern. What we also discussed was you have buildings that are a foot or two off the property line to the south, which is on the right-hand side of this land. The benefit to this development is that those existing buildings will block any lighting for the most part on this property. So it's a double-edged sword there. You'll need the lighting. You don't want it to spill over to the residences, but there's existing building there that will block the lights.
Yeah, and I would think we need to be careful of where the light's shining too. You're gonna have, and we'll have to look at that when we go through that is, do we get the down facing lights and exactly what you said? Cause you've got Mr. Renner's house down here and then all the ones up here. The last thing he wants is trying to sleep at night and there's lights blaring in his windows. The other thing too is, cause we have sidewalks on that, so you gotta make sure that it's lit well enough.
For the sidewalks.
Yeah, that people are walking in and if people are walking in and out in the evenings.
So one thing I picked up in my discussion with Ben today is he's very conscious of the neighbors. And he understands that this isn't gonna be a shopping center, parking lot
Right.
with the lighting. You gotta be respectful of the community. The community will be, again, based on our discussion. So it's just a matter of working out the details, what borough wants and what works on site.
Sure. Well, maybe you, I don't know if you can or cannot answer this, but it appears in the executive summary from the traffic. It says about access will be served by one full full access driveway to Main Street. What is the difference classification between a driveway, quote unquote, and a roadway, quote unquote? Because I would think that this would be defined as a roadway, but obviously this executive summary, who's obviously working for the developer and obviously making this as least as possible,
Yeah.
you know, and does, and again, you might not be able to answer this, does that make a difference? And is that something that we should, Anton should be cognizant of? I mean, obviously he reviewed this and he provided comments, but this is not a state highway. So this section is our burden and, you know, our problem once a developer leaves. So I just want to make sure that we don't have an issue by classifying it one versus classifying it something else. If the site distance is different, classifying one, I would rather see it being classified as the higher one to make sure that site distance and different things, site triangles and different things are met to the satisfaction of the borough. Again, just because, again, once, you know, no offense, once you leave, you're gone. You know, we live here and, you know, some of us have lived here for, you know, 30, 40, 50 years. And, I just want to make sure that the problem doesn't bounce back to us.
I'll tell you, I looked at this as a common driveway, not as a street. I don't think it meets probably a number of the criteria of the street requirements. I don't-
Should it? I mean,
I don't, in my opinion, and quite frankly, I can't recall the amount of research that I did to identify this as a common driveway, but I did enough to be comfortable that I wouldn't consider it a street.
I mean, what about like, when you've got trash trucks in and out every week, you've got, you know, moving trucks and those kind of things in and out.
Yeah.
You know, if it's a driveway,
Well, I mean, the size is the size,
Mhm.
and the dimensions are the dimensions. It still has to pass not really the trash truck, the emergency vehicles. Yeah,
Right,
the
right.
fire truck is gonna be. the
even
biggest
bigger
one.
than a, yeah.
And they're gonna have to run those turning templates, and they're gonna have to, you know, do it to the satisfaction of your fire marshal and your traffic engineer. And if they can't, then they're back to the drawing board, but that's a deal breaker. If they can't make that work, so it's happening.
yeah, that was one of my comments, because code inspections, you know, just said about running the templates. I mean, do you think there's gonna be a problem, Rob?
There's not a problem, it should be on the zip, it might be on the zip drive.
Is it-
We got the template, we ran it just to make sure. It's pointless to have this discussion, we had
Yeah.
redesign it.
Okay.
But I think so.
Today.
We ran it, I did run it. That's all. I took the weekend off.
Let me ask you this question. What's the jog for? Why didn't you just bring that straight out to Main Street?
To get it as far that way as possible was.
To get it further from the intersection of Main and Broad?
Correct, and then there's also the driveway, the neighbor who's at the intersection. Their driveway is
Right next to the property line.
right there, yeah, they have
They have
that old aerial has both there.
That big garage.
Yeah,
Can you send me?
Good question.
She's just gonna move you closer.
There you go.
Is that good?
Yeah, that
Yeah.
Okay.
So you can see along, again, that's the southern property line. You can see the entire property line. All the neighbors are maybe a foot or two off the property line, if that location.
Mhm.
So if they were to go straight out, you're probably not gonna get the radius, you know, on that intersection there. So it almost needs to be, it is, I just want to hear their opinion on it.
yeah, and the other reason why we consider it a driveway is. We've run into this on older projects where we get contacted by HOA. HOA owns a road for 25 years since time to pave it, and then they go begging the municipality to take it so that they can repave it. I think at no point is the borough ever gonna wanna take responsibility for the driveway, and I don't think that, I think that clarifies it between. It's a private road as opposed to a driveway serving for, two sets of townhouses. So that's kind of the way we always looked at it. Because again, the dimensional standards of a road, then you come with setbacks off of the road and all those things, and this is more of a planned community with a shared driveway.
And if it were to be a road, it would have a right of way associated with it, and that would require additional setbacks. So
Not
you'd
if-
probably lose 2 or 3 or 4 of the units.
Not if it's a private road.
It's still like right of ways, just like Bennett's Court does.
Yeah. I mean, as if the homeowners association's taking it over, we don't care.
Then it would go that way.
Well, sort of. I mean, we're getting complaints out of Bennett's Court now, right? And they're not all sold. And they're already complaining there's no parking, you know? So if you've got even smaller spaces like this here, and there's 8 units,
Now Bennett's Court, I believe only has one garage, I think.
It does.
These have two-car garages and driveways as well. So they have roughly, what's the number we came up with?
3.5.
3.5,
We have 4, so 2 in the garage, 2 in the driveway.
that's 12
And
there.
then
Yeah,
12,
nope.
so 1.5.
Nobody parks in the garage.
So
That's where the lawnmowers and that's where
trash
the
cans.
Well,
trash
I mean,
can.
these guys don't have lawnmowers, which
Well,
is understood.
Okay, rototillers and their lawn equipment and
Snow blowers.
the ski do and all that
Yeah.
stuff. They all, they all park outside and, I mean, reality is that you have a family of 4, they have 5 cars. Because somebody works for a company that, you know, has a company car and mom has a car, dad has a car, and the 2 kids will get cars when they're 16. So that's the reality that, I mean, Heather Meadows. Heather Meadows was the worst decision that this borough made. And it's just a juggernaut up there with traffic and everything. And
So without the garages included, if they did not have garages, they would still have 3.5 spaces per parking. Which may or may not be enough. I mean, they far exceed the ordinance requirements.
Yeah.
So it's-
I'm done for now.
So can I get,
Go ahead.
so I have just a couple questions on while we're on traffic. So looking at the traffic study, that was done in 2022, right?
The study was done recently to council from 2022.
Right.
Traffic planning.
That absolutely needs to be completely redone because that was during the pandemic. Nobody was driving.
They used a factor that I believe traffic planning design.
Well,
Anton worked together.
it's almost,
to determine what that
it's
factor
almost
is.
3 years later, you know, and things don't go down, you know, as far as traffic and all.
Sure.
And that's the one of the biggest concerns of everybody in that area is the traffic and getting in and out. I mean, right now, this year alone, how many times did we adjust Vine Street traffic light? 3. This year, we had to adjust the settings on because it was backing up all the way out of town. You know,
Sure.
so,
Yeah, that was the reason Anton was looking for the gap study. He wants
Okay.
to determine how far back that queue goes. And then what's the amount of time a vehicle's gonna have to wait at our driveway to make that left turn. I'm just the right time can go smooth.
well, I'm just saying, I'm gonna want a brand new study done because we need to know exactly what's going on there because as Ken said, when you guys leave, we're gonna get skewered because, you know, we agreed to something and then nobody can get in and out of there. And it's not just gonna be that development, it's gonna be the development to the bottom of this. Because there's there's a road right up here. That's West School Street, where it comes out, and people are gonna use that to come out and go around Wayne Avenue and come out on Main Street. So. Yeah, that needs to be redone. When you look at that and the fact that it was during the pandemic, I don't care what numbers they used. That's when they did the study, so. That's all I got for now.
That's all you got for now?
For now, yeah.
Well, you touched everything already.
Are we dead set on 8 units?
I think it was 9, and so we dropped to 8. Are you asking would I go less than 8?
Yes. For
No.
more parking in there?
No, I'd have to walk away from the project if it went less than 8. I'm already at my ability to work on the project.
Okay, and also, how did you come up, there's a lot of residents questioning the name, Hatfield Walk.
Sure.
I mean, because we went from Arbor Grove, which sounds like, you know, like, I don't know, more like a greenhouse kind of area or whatever to Hatfield Walk.
Arbor Grove, I think, is actually Mike Amoroso's company. It's also named Arbor Grove. And so I'm guessing he might have just used it for that reason. I use Hatfield Walk just because I like to have the community in the community, just really for marketing purposes. when people want to Google search, they're gonna type in Hatfield and that like this pop up. So that's why I include Hatfield. And walk, I just added as your ability to walk kind of in the community, so I put the two together. I'm not married to it. If there's another name you'd like me to use, just have to be cognizant of that internet marketing stays.
Yeah, I mean, the Hatfield part is fine, but just a lot of residents are asking why walk?
It's just marketing associated with the fact that you can kind of walk anywhere from this location. Yeah, but again, I'm not married to it.
I do have a video. My wife told me that she absolutely hates it. She does spend, she.
Well, Hatfield pathway to the community park is a little too long.
We could call it Cresserville.
No, it's okay. But I mean, like, even like if you did like Hatfield Run or something like that, like, I mean, there's other ones in the area that are like, I mean, there's like Orion's Run or something like that. I mean, like, it just walk. I mean,
We
I
have
understand.
an elderly community, so that's why it's
Oh.
not really.
Yeah, they're-
Oh,
No, no,
shall
I don't support that one.
Shot fire. Do you have anything else?
Not right now.
What's you, John? How about you, Chad?
I could touch on a few items in my letter. Not to prolong this, a couple of things that I felt were important for Borough to be aware of. So there will be at least one more waiver request that you guys want to ask for, and that's for your parking setback. That includes the driveway itself.
Yes.
That is considered a parking area by definition. So ordinance requires 20 feet. Obviously, you're going to be less. What is that dimension? Can you tell me? On the southern side, so right hand side of Yeah.
This distance here.
right,
It's about 4.
or
Yeah.
So,
And you need it to the, top plan as well. So,
okay.
yeah, and again, since I've been through this project the entire time, we heard parking. That's how we got to all these extra spaces. So,
Oh, and I think it makes sense.
Yeah,
I mean, it's
so-
the only way it's going to work.
Yeah.
But technicality is you have to get a waiver. Lights, I have highlighted here. I think we already talked about that. That was a key item for me. I do believe the stormwater is going to work. I did have, a number of comments in here, but I think they're going to work themselves out.
Can I, I forgot to ask that question. This is gonna be a totally underground system.
correct, and that's to allow that the rest of the disturbed area to be green lawn for
Okay.
either the borough as a whole or our community to have an area to play or. use.
I don't want this to look like Caracal's.
It'll be underground.
That, I know, I'm just, you understand what I'm saying, that is an awful,
No,
I wish the borough never approved that with an above ground basin. That looks awful, there is no usable yard, there is no usable space there. And that is just a terrible design, and I just want to make sure that we're gonna have, lawn and something usable, that it doesn't turn out to be something like that.
Yeah. In that case, and I understand, I've heard about it a number of times. Jamie's maybe well. aware of the
Drive
concerns.
by there and look at it.
I know, I've seen it. Yeah. In that case, they did meet the ordinance requirements, and Jamie has, talked to me about suggestions or recommendations on changing the ordinance so that we don't have a condition like that. The borough had no right to deny that design, although I do agree it's not the best by any means. This is completely different. I mean, from the surface, this is gonna look like grass, with some access, points to get into it.
And that was made clear to us, maybe not by the planning commission, maybe by council that's over here, but at some point it was put the basin underground and.
Yeah, no, we just have a problem on another, it was a 4-unit subdivision. And the 1 yard had, and it's the low spot, and there's a detention basin on the corner of the yard, and it takes it, there's no usable backyard. I mean, the kids have their toys in the basin,
They have a fence in.
and it's just, and we should have planned it a little better, and it just wasn't, unfortunate, and that's what we want to make sure is that that it's just, not, I don't want to say necessarily usable because it doesn't have to be a soccer field, but grass, if they want to walk through or something along those lines, that's what we wanted. But so it doesn't turn out to be a similar situation.
The other difference with that one is the storm sewer in the street is very shallow. So I don't know that they could have made an underground basement work on that property without, I don't know if they could have, with 4 houses. This one, you have no concerns. I mean, you have the stream right there, so you have plenty of elevation. So you can
Sure.
go underground. That one, so you can't make water go uphill, so that probably wouldn't have worked. But
With
again,
enough money, you can make water go uphill.
Ask California. Chad, did,
Sure.
when that was being looked at in the stormwater part. So that's the stream to the left of it there, right? That
Correct.
comes by the post office there. Right now it's bone dry. I mean, I walked up through there. It's bone dry. What happens when, when we get like in the winter and stuff? I mean, how high does that get there?
I don't know, and I did look at that during
Yeah,
my review.
Looks like a lot of water.
It's lower, elevation is lower on the left-hand side of the plan, so if
Right.
it's gonna fill up, it's gonna go, it's not gonna come up onto this property
Okay.
towards the houses or even the storm basin. It's gonna go left, because there's a decent topography difference between their side and the other side.
And is that
as-
gonna cause an issue with that underground thing?
No,
if
because
there's that much water.
the storm system's designed to handle the increase.
Okay,
So when it releases at a slow rate, it'll release it at the pre-development rate. So there should not be an increase. And this
But it-
isn't Rob's first rodeo, so.
it's releasing it down
So,
in,
and it's
right?
releasing it right down. The other thing is, I don't ever remember when we get heavy rains that area is
I
a
just said to-
juggernaut.
Right, I just said to Chad, like even doing Ida or the 1,000-year storm, whatever you wanna call it, I don't recall this area being
Yeah.
an area of
I mean,
concern.
there's
Like-
areas in the borough
like
that
the
do
core
flood.
Commercial is downtown,
Mhm.
under the trolley bridge in Centennial, more
Yeah.
down towards Diamond,
Yeah,
Cherry
I don't-
Street area. I
Because-
don't recall this.
It
the
just
reason
looked
is-
really like really overkill when I walked by it.
Yeah.
Cause we've put all those big huge stones and stuff down there and I thought, wow, how much water goes through there,
Keep in mind, it's controlled by the culvert under the ring.
Right,
So you have a lot more capacity in the stream than you have that can actually get through that
Right.
culvert to this site.
okay. I mean, cause I live back up. We live back up behind it,
Yeah.
and I know a lot of the neighbors on, what's that, Jade or whatever that is back there.
And when Grace Luther went through the land development process, they had to put a basin in and
Okay.
adjust the stormwater, which eventually goes through their stream down through that
They had
property.
no
So
trouble.
they did some of that work upstream.
Okay,
And I think that's roughly a 42 by 36-inch concrete pipe that comes through there. So
it's pretty good size, yeah.
it's a good size, but not enough to increase the elevation of the water up to the houses or the storm basin.
Okay,
Again, it would go left because it's a lot lower on the left-hand side.
I'm sorry, you were
No,
talking
you're good.
stormwater.
You're
You
good.
continue.
My point was, again, you may see a number of comments in my letter, but I think they're all gonna be worked out through the design. I have no concerns with that. Sanitary sewer will work out the details there as well. They're gonna be pumping sanitary. You don't have enough elevation change from the buildings to the sanitary sewer system, so. They'll have 1 or 2 grinder pumps right now they're proposing to. We discussed they'll have to have backup power for when the power goes out, you'll be able to use the sanitary sewer. But again, those details will be worked out, and I'm gonna have Steve Bicker, Public Works Director, in on that as well. So he's familiar with the electric and that kind of stuff. Post office parking we talked about as well, so you can see, I don't know if it's 10 feet or so, the
Mhm.
parking lot comes onto this property. Ben did mention they do have an easement, they're gonna show that and provided, the documentation for the existing easement. They're also gonna put in some sort of fencing to block the cars from running onto that community area, so a safety barrier of some sort. And if the planning commission has any suggestions on what they wanna see, at least, and post and rail is what you would consider.
Yeah, so, this is a 6-foot, white vinyl privacy fence, and so I'm gonna continue that up to a point and then transition to just a post and rail.
Yeah, so if you see the C in community area along there, so horizontally along that parking lot is.
Yeah, I don't think we would want to block, I mean, assuming that left portion there is eventually gonna be deeded over to the borough, we wouldn't want to hide it. So I think a post and rail would be acceptable, a little more economical for you than the vinyl, but I agree with the vinyl to about, Mr. Brenner's property and some of the residents here, but I think a split rail would be acceptable for.
Split rail and probably some bumper blocks there. Just,
Yeah.
again, just keep vehicles from, you hit the gas instead of the brake, and now
Right.
you're running into the community area.
And then when it is determined, if, we're gonna put a path through there, whatever we're going to do, then we can put a break in the split rail fence or something along those lines.
And this board should consider, what would you want that pathway to be? If you're gonna want it to be through the post office, you have to obtain an easement from the post office. If you want it to be through this community, it's gonna have to be worked into this agreement that when it's developed. Partners.
Yeah.
I mean, and access.
I say, yeah, I don't think any of us really gave it any thought. I mean, I know it touches the park, Centennial Park, and the initial thought when this came in is a way to add on to the walking path and eventually get out to Main Street so that we have an opportunity that if people want to walk down the road into the park and, maybe then continue down Cherry Street and then maybe down the Liberty Bell Trail, they could do a big circle or something like that. But again, this piece with needing to get from point A to point B, and now the developer's here to do that. So we would like to do.
Yeah, I think these are some of the planning details that need to be thought about though, from this board. Because if it were to come up this sidewalk, then you're probably gonna want to extend the sidewalk along the, the units at 5 through 8. And then have maybe an asphalt trail up to the park. But again, you're gonna need you have to have public rights to do that. You have to have an access. To do that.
Yes,
Which
of
could
course.
impact the lighting, liability on Ben. There would be now liability associated with that.
Well, it'd be liability with the homeowners association because Ben's eventually gonna be out of it.
Well, I don't know what his relationship's gonna be with this long term,
Well-
but I'm using him as the owner at this point. Yes, HOA. Moving on. So. This board should be aware of, I want to call it a concern, but again, keep in mind those properties to the right. They are 1 or 2 foot off the property line, and when this privacy fence goes up. They don't own the property, they have the right to do what they want on their own property, but when a fence goes up. They're not gonna be able to access the back of their buildings. We did discuss, that fence doesn't have to be right on the property line. But if he's going to provide space for people to walk around their buildings, now they're gonna need an easement for that. I'm not saying what you should or shouldn't do, I'm just bringing it to everybody's attention that, there's gonna be a fence. If it's on the property line, that gives people maybe a foot to wedge between their building and this fence to get to the back. Some of them have windows. I don't know what they're used for, they're garages on the first floor, but there's 2-story, so I don't know if they're accessory dwellings or what.
But is the fence to keep people out or is the fence just a buffer?
A little bit of both, right? And, I think it benefits both parties, right? That the people that are living in this community have a buffer, and then the folks that are the neighbors have a buffer. So I think it benefits both. And what I said to Chad earlier today is, I'm not married to the location. If we had 4 or 5 feet there, if I scoot it off 2 feet off the property line so somebody can get through, I'm not sure I really need an easement. I mean, if somebody's then going on at 2 feet of my property, I'm not terribly concerned about that.
Sure. Well, I guess my question is, if you have a building and you have a building, so maybe you don't put a fence behind the building, but between the 2 buildings, maybe instead of a fence, we put an arborvitae or a berm with a couple trees or something. So you're not necessarily, you're gonna have the structures, but in between the structures where you want visual and you want the buffer, put a natural landscape buffer there and forget the fence. I don't know. And again, I don't know if that would work or not.
Maybe I should also describe, some of the buildings are not in the best of shape. And so it would also benefit my new residents to have some buffer there. Certainly we could try and plant some arborvitae's in lieu of a fence, where buildings are. Arborvitae's are gonna go quickly though, and if we do only have 4 or 5 feet, an arborvitae very quickly is gonna start to hit their building and come into our driveway.
Yeah,
Well, I was thinking not behind the building, like in between the building, so that you would have the buffer of the building, you'd have an arborvitae, then you have another building, and then where the opening is, have arborvitae, so the arborvitae would be in the open spot, and you would, but I understand what you're saying, you would have nothing behind the building, because the building itself is gonna act like a buffer or a barrier, not a natural barrier, but it would act like a barrier,
Yeah.
and then opening between garages or whatever, that's where you would put a natural landscaping or something like that, but, I mean, the point's understood. I mean, if you could offset the fence a little bit,
If somebody has to replace the siding on the back of the buildings, if there's a fence there, they can't get.
right,
It's better.
if the fence is on the property line, but if the fence is
they all
offset a
it
little
closer to the
bit,
curb line.
Yeah, I think if we can give them 3 feet on our side and they have, let's just say they have, that's 4 feet for them to work in. I know it's
yeah.
not ideal, but they can access the back of their structure. And I think Ben said he basically doesn't care, just like,
I would just simply say, when you run your turning templates, which you've already done, you run them for the wheelbase. It doesn't always account for the overhang of the bumper,
Yep.
so make sure it doesn't hit your fence.
Yeah, no,
Right.
correct, understood.
I mean, there's some ideas.
Sure.
You could, or do it the opposite, put the fence in the open spot, and then offset your landscaping maybe a little closer to the road or something like that, and
Trail.
whatever, I'm just,
Sure.
I'm trying to help you out, I'm trying to, make it less painful for you.
Um, The other thing I was thinking is right next to unit 1 there. That's like 4 or 5 feet away from the parking spaces there, so. If there's a window on that side or, what have you, you're gonna have headlights right there. You're gonna have, exhaust from the cars right there as well. Again, I don't have an answer or even a suggestion. I'm just bringing it to your attention of things that we look at. Backup turnaround area next to unit 4. I believe the traffic engineer had the same comment as myself. So when somebody's backing out of the unit 4 driveway, you're gonna need a little more asphalt there where the base is shown,
Mhm.
so you can make that turn. I believe that's 26 foot wide there, so you don't need a heck of a lot.
Yeah.
Just a little bit. Turning templates we talked about, privacy fence we talked about. That's it, and obviously you have to get your comments and approvals through DEP, County Planning Commission and the other consultants.
Is there a county planning commission letter?
I haven't seen one.
They did not, I looked, no,
Okay.
we didn't get one yet. I did talk to them last week when they were in and they said that they were working on it. They had a couple questions more about this, how the zoning hearing board went, how we got to where we are today. So I know that they know about it and are working on it. It didn't come to my email.
So that's all the points I'm.
Oh, yeah, please do.
Question, can you talk to me a little bit about your proposed community area on your plan and what does that look like? Is that, as we're talking about possibly having some of the property dedicated to the borough and maybe connecting a trail over, was it in your brain, we were only gonna take, the gray area that's on your plan and you were gonna continue to have the green and it was gonna be for your community? I'm talking about, if we're making a trail, I'm thinking of people walking on the trail, they're gonna stop, they're gonna use that equipment, they're gonna do that, that would have to be something maybe we work out. Can you just explain what it looks like to you?
So, first I apologize, I wasn't involved in the zoning hearing board, so, I read it differently than apparently.
It says open space. I just read it on here. It says dedicate any open space to the borough.
So I read it as if it was, hey, we just wanna make sure that it's not built on, so that's why I thought, okay, it can be part of this community's open space. But I understand if the borough really wants to take fee simple, we can work through that. So in my mind, I really just thought it was community open space, it was gonna be grass, and it was a place for kids to kick a ball, throw a baseball, and that's really it. But, I'm open to, working with Chad's office on defining a specific area and calling it, open space lot that can then be conveyed to the borough. We can work through that specific.
Okay,
So that would then become a landlocked parcel, sorry, lost it there. So
Well,
you'd be creating a landlocked parcel. Unless you then join it in what you park.
you would, I would envision it being joined to Centennial Park.
Yeah.
Cause it backs up to Centennial Park. And that, again, that the reason is somehow, and I don't know how that somehow is yet, but somehow we be able to take the trail and snake the trail through to Main Street so that you'd be able to, in a sense, walk from Main Street through the trail to the circle on Centennial Park and then back out to Cherry Street. And, if that's something where it's through the development, and this is something that we did talk about at the zoning hearing, whether through the development or if we're able to get an easement through the post office or something. And I don't know what that something is.
Logistically, you'd also have to either get an easement through parcel to the top, or you'd have to put a bridge in across the street.
Mhm.
I understand.
So real quick, the borough does have sewer line that runs right down this way. It
Yes,
actually runs through our property. We can't access it because it's actually higher than the street, so we couldn't get under it. But I don't know if you wouldn't be able to convert that, like you'd be able to extend it across and then come down this way to the post office.
Yeah.
Last year, but
I'm just brainstorming as, hey, it's something that the borough wants for the future. It's, the ultimate goal would be connected to Centennial Park with a trail going across make a bridge across the creek and have some type of connection so people don't have to walk all the way through downtown to get to Centennial. There's
Right.
now other access and other ways for people on this side of, North Main Street to enter Centennial Park. So I was just trying to see what your idea was for future planning. So obviously it'll be a conversation with, this board and with council of something we have to think about. Maybe when we even have agreements or developers agreements, those type of things, we kind of have to think about the future. We might not do it next year, it might be 10 years, but we have to plan for that.
Exactly.
I know that it's something that Hatfield Borough
That's-
really wants.
that's exactly what we want.
Yeah.
So I would ask you guys to think about how that impacts your plan. Obviously, you're gonna be showing a new lot line on there, so that impacts a number of things on your project. Not that it kills it by any means, but it's gonna have to be included on the record plans for it to go through the
Yeah.
county recording.
And any thoughts, suggestions, free engineering that you guys, when you're making the changes to the plan, is certainly helpful to us for some ideas. But no, that is an important piece for us just because we back right up to the park. And that's something that we have always wanted to, I don't want to say be in control of, but be part of our open space because, we're a landlocked borough. We don't get very many opportunities to get open space. We're not like townships. We're not, that there's all these little pockets of open space. We have very little. So when we can get it, we get it.
So, talking this through. If we show on the plan, it has an open space parcel. To be, I guess, offered to the borough. I don't know that it necessarily creates like a zoning issue, because it's like dedicated open space for the development before, right? Like, I'm just trying to like talk this through.
Right.
It would get subtracted.
Correct, so it wouldn't hurt our density, and then the other thing you're looking at is. We would put an easement over the stormwater for us to maintain in perpetuity, and. And then we would I guess we would just go back and forth on where that line actually exists.
where the line is and how the access is gonna be provided
And-
for the community to get.
Yeah, and I think Rob and Chad, you guys can,
You ease, it might make sense to carve, you know, with the line something like this. And keep this part of this, because.
And then the question is, do we show like a potential future connection, just so it's on a plan? So that you guys can work out the logistics once you own it, but.
So I guess the question I need to ask is, does the borough simply want it
You
for
okay with
access?
this? I'm sorry, guys.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, we can't,
You what?
can't make a decision right at.
So my question is, does the borough simply want it for access from Main Street to the park? Or do they want to essentially expand the park and have some sort of play equipment in that area? That impacts the line that they.
Well, yeah,
Do you have to call that now, or could you just put a line and just say future development?
Well, if they drill the line like Ben just showed you, you're gonna have no space to do anything.
my,
other
my,
than put a trail through.
my initial thought is it would be nice to have a
Oh.
pocket park there. However, that would impact you because then it would be so close to the development that you'd have a lot of strangers and all being there.
Mhm.
And then I'm thinking to myself, we have a good facility down at Centennial Park. I think it's more important to have the trail connectivity to get them to down there that I don't think, I don't think we would want any amenities there other than the trail itself. Because we want to get people from Main Street into the park so that they can, you know, like I said, continue to Cherry Street, maybe down the Liberty Bell Trail and back around. They can do a big loop if need be. So I wouldn't think that we would want a pocket park or an amenities or anything like that, other than a trail, you know, connectivity to be able to get into the park.
I agree.
How important is fee ownership? The only reason I ask is I work in a lot of places where we do blanket easements and we essentially allow boroughs or townships to take full responsibility in terms of whatever it is they want to do in a piece of open space that's owned by a homeowners association. So I guess I just want to tease that out a little bit more in terms of, you know, how important is fee ownership versus just the ability to do whatever you want.
We will have a blanket easement to get to the storm base. So
Well, no,
for
no,
your stormwater management. will be
Yeah.
fine.
And I'm going a little step beyond that, saying like, we can say, you know, a blanket easement to put a trailer wherever you want, and, you know, the area is deed restricted in the favor of the borough, and it's open to the public, and, you know, kind of all those words. But, you know, maybe you're not owning it, you kind of have full control.
Well, again, let's do it. No, I understand your opinion, okay? I think, now again, I'm only one member, okay? But I think that this board, in the spirit and intent of the zoning hearing board, would want a property line in fee simple. However, you have one member that's on council, or two members that were on council. And just because our recommendation is a property line doesn't mean that council may say, and our solicitor may agree with you and say, you know what, no harm, no foul, you're gonna mow it. As long as we have access to it and people want to run through it and walk their dog and there's a park there, that's good enough for them. Council will make the final decision of that. I think that it would be my recommendation that we own it because we can't grow land and this is our only opportunity to get land in fee simple that we would be in control of. So with that said, I would think that this board would make a recommendation like that. But that's a question that you would have to bring before council, because again, council may have a different opinion. And you have two members of council that were here for it. And again, we apologize, John and Michelle have a towing business, and there's obviously a catastrophe somewhere that needed their services, so they had to run out. So again, I apologize for them, but Michelle is also on council and Michelle knows the issues. Whatever the recommendation is here, if you feel that you want to ask that question of council, you can certainly ask that question of counsel. And if the solicitor and counsel feels differently, then cut the deal with them. But I would hope that this board would recommend that we own it fee simple.
I think our position is we want whatever is simplest,
Yeah.
you know.
I don't really have an opinion. I just, as we started talking about it, we're, carbon or stormwater in there, somebody's got to own those pipes and maintain those,
No,
it just becomes.
No, I get it. And Steve, our public works director, is probably gonna strangle me because I'm telling that he's got more land that he's gotta cut grass on but
Yeah.
it's our opportunity in a small borough.
The important part is whether it's simply a trail or usable as play area. And if it's simply a trail, that gives you a lot more flexibility on how you handle it. And for the most part, it's wooded, it's wooded with stream, so cutting of the grass, depending on where they draw a line, there won't be much grass.
Understood.
Steve. will
Really,
wanna
it's how
buy a
you
new mower.
connect,
What?
Steve will want to buy a new mower.
right? It's really how you connect to the borough's property,
Sure.
whether you need to address it with, and I'm sorry, I forget the name of who's the industrial owner?
Oh, Tom Walker.
Todd Walker.
Yeah, whether you try to get an easement from him as well, or you build that bridge. Because, there is access to the park, an existing culvert on
Mhm.
Walker's property.
Yeah, and there's some kind of an easement there.
We have an agreement.
Because we access, that's the rear, and then we access that with the large vehicles that want to get into the main part of the park there.
So these are all details that need to be worked.
I will also add that I don't know that, I think Borough Council should weigh in on if their idea was just to put a trail in there or their idea was to build an addition to the park, because I have heard comments on both sides of the table that they had an idea if they just were like, oh, I'll make a connection to Main Street, but some of them thought about it would be open space, it would be a pocket park. Did we want to put, I'm just gonna say rain gardens, exercise equipment, those type of things, and make it more of an amenity to Centennial Park, a gazebo. So I think some members of Borough Council might be looking at the open space when they heard that from zoning hearing board as, hey, this is a chance for us to develop a park in the future. So I wouldn't throw that out the window as a possibility when you go to Borough Council.
Sure.
Did Borough Council make a recommendation that is zoning hearing board?
No,
They
they
stay neutral.
they stayed neutral.
So as far as the process, would you like us to go to council next? I guess, is there a October meeting?
I believe that you're on the agenda for the November meeting, the first meeting in November, because planning commission gets technically 30 days to talk. And then, if you were gonna make revisions, would you come back to the planning commission on the 28th of October with your revisions? We kind of talked, I think.
Yeah,
We kind of said, hey, put them at council in November, because planning commission technically gets 30 days.
I don't think anything you're hearing substantially impacts your layout, so that's a good thing.
No,
So if you want to work through the review letters in the meantime over the next month, I don't think that would hurt you.
well, let me ask this question. Does this board, would this board want them to make changes, come back because they're not going to council till the first meeting in November,
November 6th,
November 6th, so that there would be an October planning commission meeting.
October 28th.
So
we have planning
does,
commission.
would this board want them to make changes and then come back and then approve that plan, and that plan gets bounced right to council?
I think we
Probably
need to
good.
talk
Good idea.
I think we need to talk more with Michelle about what she brought up and see where she's going with that. Because that would change things,
With what, the
the
number of
number of the buildings. Yeah.
the number of units?
Zoning allows 9. So I'm not sure what
Yeah,
change, like this board doesn't have the authority to tell them they need to do 7 or 6.
the density,
But,
they meet the density requirements.
and that's fine, but we can also express the reason we have concerns with that.
Right, if there's planning reasons
Mhm.
that would require them
The
to reduce
traffic
the
and all
units.
that other stuff too,
Health, safety,
and the distances and,
I would say health, safety, welfare.
yes. Thank you.
It's just covered.
Yeah.
And if there are certain waivers that,
Yeah.
you know, you're going to recommend and Borough Council agrees with you, that could impact the layout.
I mean, so far, I think, other than that stuff, everything else they've said that they would meet
Right.
meet the requirements of what you've recommended.
Yeah, and if they meet the
Different.
requirements of the ordinances, then you legally can't deny them approval.
Mhm.
You have a say on the waivers, of course. I don't know that the waivers, other than the setback, but again, this is very consistent with the zoning hearing board exhibit, which the zoning hearing board approves, so I don't know how you go back and change that now.
And so what are we waiting for from the county planning commission?
Well, the county planning commission
They might have
offers a
some-
letter, they have a letter. And legally, council would need that letter in order to approve it. So obviously, if they're not scheduled for council till November, there'll
we
be
can still
enough,
get it.
there'll be
Yeah.
plenty of time to get the letter.
And does this letter, I mean, could it,
It's only a recommendation. The county planning commission has no standing, has no,
okay,
nothing. It just.
so they don't say, we'd like to see this and this and
No,
that,
no,
okay.
they'll issue comments and they'll say, you know, X, Y, and Z, which 99% of the time Chad's already
Mhm.
has the same comments. Yeah, and they're looking at it purely from a planning standpoint, not from an engineering standpoint. But it's strictly recommendation. If they say they want the buildings pink, well, that's their recommendation and they want to make them blue, well, they're going to make them blue because that's what they want to do.
Right,
It's only a recommendation and we don't need to follow that or,
something else to consider, yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, I mean, they'll look at the comprehensive plan, they'll look at general zoning, but nothing in real detail. Connectivity to your parks, I wouldn't be surprised to see a comment there.
right. So let me ask this question would you guys be willing to, you have the review letters, make the changes, come back next month for us, and you've already made changes, so presumably you'll get a clean letter for council, and then when you go to council, all of these issues will hopefully be worked out, and really the only issue you would have to really discuss with council is what to do with the open space.
Yeah, that sounds about right. I guess so. Yeah, probably a question for Chad. How much time does he need?
You
to
just
I'm
asked
hearing
me.
it in stereo
Yeah,
here.
I'm okay, how soon could you get a revised set of
So
plans?
so
and then-
this is what I'm offered to do.
Yeah.
We'll get it in the next couple weeks, 2.5 weeks, or 4 weeks, which is probably 4 weeks. Chad may not have a review, but we can go through it at the meeting, because again, we're trying to hit on the high level. Hey, we shifted the fence, we're showing the open space, because I don't know that the planning commission is gonna sit here, we're gonna talk about the curve numbers. And the
No, that's
Right.
correct.
right, so so by the time we're here, we can go through to receive a favorable recommendation from you. We can have the planning commission, or the Montgomery County Planning Commission. And then Chad can issue a letter before council so that they know that it's clean. So I can get in like 2.5 weeks, if that would work.
Yeah, when's the next meeting?
So October 28th is PC, and then November 6th is planning commission.
It's 5 weeks.
I'm not telling my kids they don't get to see me that much. They'll be cheering.
Sounds like a plan.
Yeah, I can't commit to that at this point, but I'll do my best.
Yeah.
It all depends on what else
That's
is on
fine.
my desk.
Yeah, it's fine.
And I think you could just, even if he doesn't have a letter, you could come back and present and show that you changed it.
Correct. The plans will be here, and Chad may not have had a chance to review, but at least on some level,
Maybe
we
you
will
can
show.
see the changes.
Yeah.
We're willing to make all of the changes, again, Chad will still have a couple, but, at the end of the day, we've heard what the planning commission wants to see and highlight those things. We'll adjust them to what we think that the borough wants to see and
Right. Okay.
come back.
Um,
So October 28th, yes, and November 6th, yes, for council.
Yeah.
Okay, just
Okay.
marking it down.
Yeah, and keeping in mind that maybe the biggest comment of all is traffic. And I
Mhm.
don't know that they'll have that. You most likely will not have a review from McMahon by that meeting. Maybe even by Borough Council, so.
Cause that's the big thing.
This is a great plan
Definitely.
for us to work this out, but it's the big deal is traffic that looks like it won't be done.
In November, we meet on the 6th, and we also meet on the 20th. So if you want to give yourself a couple extra weeks and go to the 20th to hoping for a better traffic letter, you just let me know. I just have to put you on the agenda, so I just need to know your plans. Doesn't matter to me either way. Council is very, I know it's supposed to be a workshop and a regular, but they will accommodate whatever is best for everyone to hear with the most information.
Should,
We have a neighbor here,
thank you. That's good.
so would you like to speak? Do you have anything to say?
Would,
Now, time's yours,
that fair?
wherever you
So
want.
we can hear you. Yeah.
Fine.
Or just talk
I'll
loud.
address it.
Thanks.
You're on record.
That's what I was gonna ask you. Thanks.
Douglas Renner, 25 North Main. My biggest thing is the traffic. It's already a very congested area. So then you're gonna add all this to it with the proximity of the intersection and the post office, and I'm in between. It's, I don't know, my opinion is this whole thing is putting 10 tons of stuff in a 5-pound sack. My opinion. Okay, the other thing is, talk about this underground basin or storm water management. How does that work with the creek being so close? And what's the, like, getting the physics there?
So there's enough elevation change between this property and the creek. So that the water from the creek isn't gonna back up into the basin. It'll be high enough.
Correct.
It'll be like putting a storm tank on a roof.
Yeah, okay, but the basin, where does that drain into the ground? Is it gonna, where does that water go?
It will,
Down
correct me if
to
I'm
soil?
wrong, it'll infiltrate into the ground, and whatever doesn't infiltrate, there's an overflow that'll direct it to the stream.
Okay, generally, yeah, yeah, just,
In basic terms, yes.
and like you're saying now, there is no water in there, but when we get a thunderstorm,
Mhm.
that baby's pretty full.
Yeah.
So I don't know how it impacts with, obviously with all the asphalt there, it's gonna run off and,
There's a good one, down at the Giant
yeah,
in the parking lot. There's a huge one underneath that.
is there?
Yeah, and
Okay.
then the school too.
Mhm.
They put one, Hatfield Elementary School is right behind it, Jamie and I. And there's a huge one underneath the parking lot. So all that asphalt and the water just goes down in there. Never an issue with
I
that.
don't, I'm not familiar with all that stuff.
Yeah, it's different.
Yeah.
The one
Okay.
by Giant looks like a bunch of boxes that they stacked in there, and I guess
Back
the water.
underground.
Yep.
Yeah, and it contains the water goes there, and then it slowly, as Ken said earlier,
Absorb.
there's a rate that it's absorbed into the,
Okay.
down into the ground.
The only thing is the Giant there, that's pretty flat, where this has a,
Well, there's a lot of asphalt there, and all that funnels into that.
yeah, okay, but this creek goes all the way up to where the old speedway used to be.
Yeah.
Where-
Where I live.
Yeah.
Yep.
So it gets a lot of, gets a lot of momentum by the time it gets down
I
through there.
send as much to you as I can.
So that's just, the biggest thing is the traffic. It's like, it's already a traffic nightmare, and the thing is, are the people gonna be able to come out and turn left? Being it's so close to that traffic light, and it's already, I mean, you get there around 5 o'clock, it's already all the way up the street. So how does that work with people trying to get in and out there? Okay, right turn, yeah, that's not a problem. But anybody wants to go left turn, that just adds to the congestion, it's just,
Yeah, and that's, one thing that I didn't mention too about a reason for wanting this study now. Because I don't know if when that was done, if school was in, because right now, like now that school's
oh,
up,
it's crazy. It's-
because there's a couple of bus stops on, right near there. In fact,
Isn't-
just past the.
Isn't like when I was a
post
kid,
office.
they had bus stop here and here, we walked, blah, 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 it's not
Yeah.
that way anymore.
Now they stop almost every house.
Yeah, right. No, it's like,
Yeah, so there's, I
we used to
mean,
walk to school, I mean, I understand things are different now, well, it's-
uphill both ways. right?
Uphill both ways.
Now, it's uphill one way and downhill the other.
Barefoot.
So, yeah, that's just like my biggest concern, I mean, can you answer me one thing, I don't follow, how come the borough never bought this to add on to Centennial Park? To me, like, common sense tells me
Because it was
they
never,
come
it
with-
was never offered, I don't believe it was ever offered to sale for us,
So,
to purchase it, was it?
Yeah, they approached, but there wasn't a price. They offered, and council wasn't
Joanne's
interested
brother,
at the time.
former mayor was part of this, I think, right?
His sister, I believe.
Yeah, it's his sister, but the mayor had something to do with the land here,
Hmm,
if I'm correct.
correct or something.
So. That would have made a whole lot of more sense than doing this. Just common sense. So. I don't know where all my
Yeah, your
neighbors
neighbors.
are, they,
Yeah.
they always have their mouth running, but never come here and run their mouth. I hear them run their mouth, but it's like, hey, you gotta come when it counts. So,
Well, we appreciate you
Yeah,
being
thanks
here.
for Coming out.
okay,
Yeah, thank you.
well, I guess that's all I gotta say.
Thank you.
But,
All right.
but Jamie, or Chad, that is a good point. Would there, or is there going to be any restrictions right in, right out, or no left turns during timeframes?
That's entirely up to the traffic
That
engineer.
I understand that, but
That's why we were just talking about the timing of coming back to meetings in a sense of, I think, doing a traffic study, which Anton wrote in his original letter, and then having those results and having Anton's letter is extremely important for the conversation moving forward.
Yes,
with
Mhm.
council.
with
Yes,
council.
correct. Like, that's that is,
Well-
if not the most important discussion that
Well,
you've
they,
heard.
they did a traffic study. They're just asking for the gap study, correct?
That's correct, and capacity analysis.
And
What do you
capacity.
mean by gap study, I don't,
So a gap study is trying to determine how often there's gaps in that, so.
To get people out.
Yeah, so like, so the cars stack up here, right, so this is a left turn lane, so the cars stack up. As Soon as the light turns green, right, the arrow allows, all of a sudden these cars go, right? So in the morning, does it go all the way back to here, and is there never a gap? Or does this,
there's a gap, but it's
I
after
think
this.
that's.
Yeah, it goes all the way to West School Street.
Yeah, right.
To me.
So,
Cause I try to get out
But
there
that's a
sometimes from
question,
West
you know,
School.
you'll talk to
Sit-
Anton
Wait,
before we
wait,
will,
wait.
yeah, right.
just to,
So that's just my biggest concern.
is there gonna be
about
any
the whole-
restrictions?
Mr. Mayor, the process is they hire a traffic engineer, an expert. That's all they do is traffic studies.
Okay,
And then the borough also has a consultant to check their work.
okay.
And they're the two that'll go back and forth and make sure everybody's satisfied.
Did they ever look at real time? When they do this study, they look at real time what the traffic is doing? Say like
They do
5 o'clock?
traffic counts. Literally, somebody stands out there and counts the number of cars. They
Okay.
count how many turn left here, how many turn right, how many go straight, how many
Okay.
are coming in from which direction. So that's a study that Larry, mentioned. He's not happy with when they did it.
Yeah,
Concerned about time.
Well, it needs to be done like present, because it's like, it doesn't, keeps getting more and more all the time.
Mm.
So,
I understand.
that's my 2 cents.
Right.
Okay,
Thank you.
Thank you.
all right,
Thanks.
thank you.
All right, so, we're gonna table this until the next meeting. Presumably, you guys will submit, revised plans, come up with some ideas with the open space and make the changes and, hopefully whatever information you can get to Anton. Because obviously I would think council would want the revised letter prior to them approving it, but the anticipated schedule, then you would be on for November council meeting, whether it's the first meeting or second meeting, and that would be determined whether reviews are in or not, so.
Great, thank you.
All right, good. So do I have a motion to table this to next meeting?
make a motion.
I have a motion, I have a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Oppose, the ayes have it. All right, thank you, guys.
Yeah, thanks.
All right, number 4, we have updates, Bennett's Court, Diddens, and Roosevelt.
Bennett's Court, the construction is coming to completion and the contractor's working on punch list items. So if you haven't taken a ride out there recently, go through. The development looks really nice. They'll probably be submitting some escrow releases soon to Borough Council. Diddens Greenhouses, there's been no update since the last Planning Commission meeting. They still need to go to Zoning Hearing Board. We have not received any application for that. And 43 Roosevelt, they're currently working on the developers agreement and posting financial security.
Good. All right, number 5 is new business. There's a zoning hearing board application for 350 Broad Street. That is Vinnie's, right?
Correct, yep.
And Vinnie's is putting a prep area to the kitchen.
Yeah, it's a storage area
Storage
and they
area.
have to go back to zoning because it's over 5% of the total building floor. Because it was a non-conforming use, they went and got, so it's just a stipulation in zoning that they have to go back and that's what they're asking for, relief on that 5%. I believe it's a 536 square foot
Yep.
addition. It's strictly for storage, not gonna be dining, anything else, storage is what he had said. So just wanted to let planning commission know, Borough Council has authorized me to write a letter, but it's strictly to just address that the crosswalk issue. As the zoning hearing board had reached out and said, you never completed the crosswalk, that was part of your original zoning hearing board order. And the reason they didn't complete the crosswalk is because that's a Hatfield Borough project. And I explained in the letter that, you know, where we are in that process, where we received grant funding for that. The utility replacement project on West Broad has just pushed that back, because we don't want to put a crosswalk in and then dig it up.
Right.
So that's a Hatfield Borough project. We secured grant. We actually have the matching funds in the bank. And Hatfield Borough council has taken a neutral stance on the zoning hearing board application.
Does this board want to stay neutral? Do you want to act in favor of it? Are you against it? I mean, I'm certainly in favor of it.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I'm not against it. I mean, we could go in favor
I'm in
of it.
favor of it, but,
Yeah,
I mean, do you want to make a recommendation?
yeah, I'll make a recommendation. Well, should I? Because I'm on council.
Well, I'm
I
certainly,
mean, I'll vote, but
I'm certainly willing to make a recommendation to approve the zoning hearing board, application for Vinnie's Pizza.
I just don't want it in case I make the motion at the council meeting. I wouldn't want to be the one to make the vote.
All right, all right. I made a motion, Larry second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the ayes have it. So we made a recommendation of approval for the zoning hearing board application, and if you could pass that on to the zoning hearing board, which is Thursday night, right?
Correct. Yep. I will let their chair know and copy everybody and let Eric know that that motion was made at this meeting.
Is there any other items? The next meeting would be October 28th. Anything else for the good of the cause? Do I have a motion to adjourn? Do I have a motion? Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the ayes have it.
You like